covering everything in the central part in the maroon color, this gives you a perspective as to the distribution of the Muslim community, the religion of Islam. The part of the world that is our concentration is the area that is technically known as the Middle East, North Africa. However, there is no such thing as Middle East in geography, but it's a conjured up term for us to understand. But due to security nature of the work that we're involved with, I refrain from putting the name of the countries on the screen. Those of you familiar with this map will have an idea of where this part of the world is. So the concentration is both geographically and also conceptually, meaning the people and the communities that come to America from that part of the world is also the focus of our ministry. On the map, on the screen, the areas that are in beige color, North and South America, Europe, Russia, Australia, Sub-Saharan Africa, all those areas in beige color are the areas of the world that up to 90% by now have heard the gospel. Now, whether they make a decision for the gospel or not, we can't tell, but this area that is in beige color on the map, up to 90% have heard the gospel by now. But if you notice the color chart gets darker, it brings us to the dark maroon areas. Between 65 and 100% of these areas of the world have yet to hear the gospel and have yet to hear the news of Jesus' return. 33% of the world community is considered Christian. 33 to 40% have been evangelized, including that large shaded area, because it is very difficult to have hard statistics as to how much of the world has received the gospel, responds to the gospel, but technically 33 to 40% has been evangelized. What remains unreached is 27 to 33% of the world population, and that number, as you and I speak on this beautiful Sabbath morning, is between 3 to 3.5 billion. We would like very, very seriously, adamantly, in a very systematic way to equip our church to be able to reach this unreached community of over 3 billion people. There's contributing reasons, there's no shortage of contributing reasons, but what we know today, that over 1 billion Muslims don't have a Christian friend. We can reverse this. Over 1 billion Christians don't have a Muslim friend. Ellen White, over 135 years ago, in her book Evangelism, she said that God has providentially allowed all these foreigners to come to America. That includes me. I'm an Iranian, incidentally from the land of Persia, where the story was shared with us about Esther. And many of you here, we were not born in America. Providentially, she says, God has allowed all these foreigners to come to America that more than anything else, they can hear the good news from God's people. And in turn, they will transfer that good news to their respective communities around the world. This way, the world could be evangelized. This way, the return of Jesus can be expedited. But unless we do things the Lord's way, we might be missing on this great opportunity. The Lord Jesus, first and foremost, mingled with the world, mingled with his community, mingled with people who came from absolutely different backgrounds. Then when he mingled and ministered to them in their time of need, he built a trust relationship. Unless our communities trust us, otherwise it is very difficult to share the gospel with people. And after that, the Lord bid them follow. So unless we do things according to our Master, according to the Lord, we might be frustrated in our efforts to reach the unreached sector of the world that is coming to America. But unless we do it the Lord's way, otherwise, I think we might be reinventing the wheel all over again. What we do to help the Adventist Church, including your church, in America and across the world, is we design and maintain strings of websites that cater only to the Muslim community. In other words, our aim is not to preach Jesus to Christians. Our aim is to bring Jesus to non-Christian sector of the world, in this case, the Islamic world. So one of the websites that we have, and we freely offer everything on this website to everyone that comes to this website, is one of them is Ahd Jadid, which in Farsi language means a new covenant. So if you have neighbors that come from Iran, Afghanistan, and speak Farsi, this is one of the websites that we are incorporating, that we are utilizing in sharing the three angels' message, the faith of Jesus, in a contextually relevant way with these communities for them to learn more about Adventism. We're very sensitive to the artwork that we use in our websites and also in our media. Most of what American Christians are used to basically, in many ways, is offensive to the Muslim audience, to the Muslim communities. So what we do, we are very sensitive to the attire, we're sensitive to the graphics, we're sensitive to the materials, the way it's been presented. Why? Because we're very aware of the Muslim audience. Those of you who would like to share your faith with your Muslim co-workers, neighbors, doctors, students, somewhat having a difficult time cross that gap, more than just, a courteous hello, God bless you, you want to go further. What we have done, we have dedicated another website, asureharvest.com, for Adventists to learn about Muslims and for Muslims to learn about Adventists and the security and the comfort of their home. Many in our churches would say, why do I need to know about Islam? Isn't television, CNN and Fox News enough for us to learn about Islam? The answer is no, absolutely not. Let me give you an idea. Based on my exposure to different churches, different parts of the world, there are over 33,000 Christian denominations around the world. Over 33,000 denominations. No denomination in Christendom, in Christianity, shares more in common with the religion of Islam than the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Let me give you an example. A cleric, a Muslim religious leader, was speaking with one of my colleagues. He said, we understand you guys don't eat pork. We don't eat pork. You don't drink alcohol. We don't drink alcohol. He said, you're against gambling. We're against gambling. You don't smoke. He paused a little bit. He said, we know we're not supposed to smoke. He said, my brother, you have to be a Muslim. I have never seen a Christian that doesn't eat bacon and drink beer. So you got to be a Muslim. God has uniquely endowed this movement of people in the end time history of the human world to be able to reach this massive ocean of people. Now I appreciate the fact why I don't eat pork. It's not necessarily just to say God says don't. It's not only for the health, but it's also to be the means for people to come to a salvific knowledge of Jesus Christ. Even though some people have argued with me in our churches that no, that's not necessarily the case. But again, I'll leave that for the afternoon seminar. What we also do, we encourage our churches to invite the Muslim community, which I understand there's over 250,000 in Bay Area, to a joint worship service. Now, it might sound a little far-fetched to some, but this is an example. Sorry for the fuzzy resolution. Again, this is on purpose for security nature, but we invited the Muslim community in Southern California, in the cities of El Cajon and San Diego, to join us for a worship service. Over 100 Muslims came to worship service. They sat next to Adventists for the first time in their lives. Afterwards, we opened the floor for question and answer. I was kind of moderating just so things wouldn't get out of control. Afterwards, we had a tasty Middle Eastern dish. We graced each other. Everybody went home knowing each other for the first time, greeting each other first time. And by God's grace, nobody got hurt. So I strongly recommend your church, your pastor, and the leadership, and every one of you here, to give this a thought, to invite the Muslim community to come to your church, sit in your church, experience your worship service, and unless we see our Muslim brothers and sisters eye to eye as humans, just like every one of us, otherwise we will be regurgitating the Advent message to mainly our own, and we don't want to do that. What we also do, we help our churches around the globe, especially in the areas of the world that are very populous with the Muslim community. To give you an idea, the Russian Federation is one of the focuses of our ministry, why the former Soviet Union is home to over 60 million Muslims. One of the former Soviet republics, by the name Chechnya, was the main contributor to the backbone and to the soldiers that basically created ISIS. You see, if we don't reach the Muslim community with the three angels message, with the last salvific message of Jesus, another entity reaches out to them, and we saw the results of the devastation and the brutality that this radical Islamic group created. However, in Chechnya, we have over 50 churches, Adventist churches. But none of these churches were connecting with the Muslim community. So we have made it a point to extend our ministry to help, to equip, to train our pastors, especially Russian pastors, to be able to communicate and establish meaningful relationship with the Muslim community in their federation. What we also do, we produce television programs. We're in the process of making television programs that is strictly designed to the Muslim audience. Why we insist on doing this is because most of our media efforts, most of the I would say not televangelism, but most of the programs that we have on our Christian television primarily caters to Christian viewers. Most of the programs are not being received favorably by the Muslim community. What we have tried to do, change that whole perspective, produce television program exclusively for the Muslim audience, and so we're faced with another dilemma. Most of our broadcasting is basically to the Christian community, both in America and around the world. And so what we have realized, new wine needs new wineskin. And so we are producing the television show, but our dream is to have a network exclusive to the Muslim viewers around the world so they can open it, click the channel, and not be offended, not be alienated by what they see on the screen. So keep it in your prayers. We're soliciting your prayers and your interest in this endeavor. And finally, one next to final. As a missionary and as a pastor in North America, I have encountered the greatest need at any time in history for the church, for members, for folks like you coming to church on God's day to explore and to discover your spiritual gifts. I don't compromise on this issue, and I insist to help our churches have a solid grasp on this incredible phenomenon for which Christ had to die to give us these gifts. What I've realized, there's a lot of guesswork when it comes to spiritual gifts. A lot of people guess their way through it, and at the end of the day, they become frustrated for the most part. What I've discovered through the last 5 years of research, that we have the tools, we have the science, and we have all that is needed to help our folks discover their God-given strengths, upon which the spiritual gifts are based on. Why do I say this? When the Lord shared the parable about a rich man giving talents to his servants, to one he gave 5, to one he gave 2, to one he gave 1, Jesus says, according to their abilities. See, the word ability in English is an old English word, but the new modern day translation should be strengths. The word in Greek is used dunamis, which where we get the word for dynamite. He gave them their gifts according to the power and the strength that they had. What we have come to, we can help our members discover that strength that God has given you at birth, and how to correlate, how to bring those strengths into developing your unique spiritual gift. Based on this, what we have seen, our members begin to find out what their calling in life is without guessing, without shooting in the dark, but to be very, very accurate. And by God's grace, we want to bring this also to your church Pastor, if you will ever be interested in equipping your members based on the strengths that God has given them. Finally, in this part of the report, here's a reality check. As a world denomination, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and based on my exchange and based on my interactions with the people in the North American Division and the seminary, what we know now, as a world denomination, we're spending in excess of 80% of all the funds allocated to foreign missions in sending missionaries to primarily Christian countries around the world. 80%. Another 18% we are spending, investing in unentered territories, but they are primarily, again, Christian communities around the world. But in order to reach at least 1.7 billion Muslims, we are left with the 2% of the funds. This is why, after 175 years since the inception of the Adventist Church, we're still here. Jesus is not back yet. We're still here. Why? Because the three angels' message primarily has been shared with Christian community. I believe that the non-reached part of the world is as entitled to the three angels' message as the Christian community. And so what we want to do, what we have done, we have foregone the security and I would say this financial support of the church, and we have embarked on this ministry on behalf of the church to bring this awareness to churches like you, to bring this awareness to the church that we need to reach the unreached sector of the world. And in order to do this, we travel extensively to bring this knowledge and education for your church. To do this work around the world, in America, we're only left with the 2% of the funds. And so, this has not stopped us from doing this work. By God's grace, churches like you have had us, invited us to be with you to bring this knowledge and this information to your church. And in return, we would solicit, we would encourage our churches to support this ministry with their financial support. With the pastor's permission and with the arrangement with our ministry, our deacons are given a small envelope. They're going to come through the pews. Do we have deacons on hand? Thank you so much. They're going to come with a small envelope. Take an envelope each, hold on to it. At the end of the service, both this morning and also in this afternoon, if the Lord convicts you, if He impresses upon you that this ministry is needed, we need to reach Islam if we are to see Jesus come back, and we will greatly appreciate your support today. As this is going on, with your permission, allow me to go to the piano, play a special number on the piano, and I'll go to the message right after. Do I have your permission?